Philly at the New York Jets. This feels like we had the squeaky wheel game for Dallas Goedert last week. It feels like it's Devonta Smith's turn, but we know that the Jets are fantastic against wide receivers for fantasy. They are horrendous against tight ends and pass-catching running backs. What Philly players are you attacking in this matchup?
I mean, you've summed it up for me. You know what it's like as a Jets fan. You've seen, you've been banging this drum for a few weeks. The Jets can't cover tight ends. We can't cover pass-catching running backs. And yeah, the Jets lead the league in tight end points allowed. They also lead the league with 5 touchdowns to tight ends through 5 weeks. They struggle against pass-catching running backs. So I think that's the obvious way to play them. Jalen Hurts at 8,200 is the highest priced quarterback on DraftKings this week. And at that price, you really need him to be hitting 30, 35 points to pay off putting that much capital into your quarterback over a player like Justin Fields or Gardner Minshew, who's much cheaper. So, yeah, I mean, with Jalen Hurts, it's always tricky. You never know when he's just going to have one of those games where he doesn't get unleashed because the team just isn't pushed. So far this year, he's had 5 attempts inside the red zone, inside the 5-yard line, and scored 4 touchdowns on them. And that's really helped because as his scoring's gone on this year, he's actually way down compared to last year. Like, he's scoring like 3 points less per game, which makes a difference when you drafted him in the second round. In terms of on the Jets side, there's not many ways to attack this Eagles defense. They're not as good as last year. The passing game, particularly, they allowed the second most fantasy points to slot receivers. So, I mean, Rich, you could tell us in a minute who you think would be the best play there. The Breece Hall, I mean, he was incredible last week. He went 25 for 194 and 1 touchdown, and he was unleashed. But the Eagles have allowed the third fewest running back fantasy points so far. I don't think that Breece Hall is necessarily going to be able to attack them in the same way that he was able to attack the Broncos. So, yeah, I mean, is there any of the wide receivers on the Jets side that you'd start?
I think you kind of got to start Garrett Wilson. I think there's, he's a big play waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. In terms of slot receivers, there's no way I'm touching Randall Cobb, and he's the only guy. It sounds like McCole Hardman's about to get traded. Xavier Gibson started working in on some kind of unique touches, but there's not enough volume there for him to be a play. So, yeah, I think it's Garrett Wilson. I think you've got to start Breece Hall. It's a tough matchup, but I think the guy's an absolute stud, and he's shown that he's a touchdown waiting to happen whenever he gets the ball in his hands. So I think you've kind of got to plug and play him. And really, if you're attacking this game, it's the Philly side you want to do. I think you just need to be sensible and keep an eye on DJ Reed's practice status because he's coming back from a concussion. If he's not healthy, Bryce Hall played really well last week, but I don't know if he can do it back-to-back weeks. It could be whichever receiver doesn't get Sauce Gardner, which I imagine will be Devonta Smith. It could be that it's his big game and we get that squeaky wheel finally gets the grease.